I'm so excited to share something incredibly important with you today. We're going to talk about communication skills, and trust me, this is going to change your life in ways you can't even imagine right now. I know that sounds dramatic, but I've seen it happen over and over again. People transform their entire world just by learning how to communicate better. You know what's funny? Most of us think we already know how to communicate. I mean, we've been talking since we were babies, right? We text our friends, we chat with our family, we talk to our coworkers. But here's the thing, and this might surprise you, there's a huge difference between just talking and truly communicating. It's like the difference between throwing paint at a canvas and creating a beautiful painting. Both involve paint and canvas, but the results are completely different. Let me tell you a quick story. A few years ago, I had a friend named Sarah. She was smart, funny, and had a heart of gold. But she struggled so much in her relationships, both personal and professional. She would get into arguments with her boyfriend over the smallest things. At work, her boss never seemed to understand her ideas, even though they were brilliant. She felt frustrated and lonely, like no one really got her. One day, Sarah came to me almost in tears. She said, "I don't understand what's wrong with me. I try so hard to explain things, but people just don't listen." That's when I realized something important. Sarah wasn't the problem. She just hadn't learned the art of effective communication yet. And you know what? Within 6 months of working on her communication skills, her whole life changed. Her relationship became stronger, she got promoted at work, and she felt more confident than ever before. This is exactly why I want to share these skills with you today. Because communication isn't just about talking, it's about connecting with people, building relationships, and creating the life you want. Whether you're trying to make new friends, improve your romantic relationship, excel at work, or just feel more confident in social situations, better communication skills are your secret weapon. Now I know some of you might be thinking, but I'm shy, or I'm not good with words, or English isn't my first language, so this is even harder for me. Listen to me carefully, these skills can be learned by anyone. I don't care if you're naturally introverted, if you stumble over words sometimes, or if you're still learning English. Some of the best communicators I know started exactly where you are right now. Let's start with something that might shock you. The most important part of communication isn't talking at all. It's listening. I know that sounds backwards, doesn't it? But think about it for a moment. When someone really listens to you, how does it make you feel? It makes you feel valued, understood, and important. That's the magic of good listening. But here's where most people go wrong. They think listening means waiting for the other person to stop talking so they can say what they want to say. That's not listening, that's just taking turns talking. Real listening means giving your full attention to the other person, trying to understand not just their words, but their feelings, their perspective, their needs. Let me teach you a simple technique that will immediately improve your listening skills. It's called active listening, and it has 3 parts. First, give the person your full attention. Put down your phone, turn off the TV, look them in the eyes. Second, show that you're listening. Nod your head, say things like or I see or that makes sense. Third, reflect back what you heard. You can say something like, so what I'm hearing is, or it sounds like you're feeling. This shows the person that you're not just hearing their words but understanding their message. I remember when I first learned about active listening, I tried it with my sister. She was telling me about problems at her job, and instead of immediately giving her advice like I usually did, I just listened. I asked questions like, How did that make you feel? And what do you think would help? By the end of our conversation, she said, "Thank you so much for listening. I feel so much better." She solved her own problem just by having someone truly listen to her. The next skill I want to share with you is something I call speaking with clarity. This doesn't mean you need to have a perfect accent or use fancy words. It means expressing your thoughts in a way that others can easily understand. Think of your words like a gift you're giving someone. You want to wrap that gift nicely so they can receive it well. Here's a simple formula for clear communication. First, think before you speak. I know this sounds obvious, but how many times do we just blurt out whatever comes to mind? Take a moment to organize your thoughts. Second, use simple, direct language. Don't try to impress people with big words. Use words that your listener will understand. Third, be specific. Instead of saying, "I had a bad day," say, "I had a difficult day because my presentation didn't go well and I got stuck in traffic for an hour." Let me give you an example of how this works. Instead of saying, "The thing is, sometimes when people do stuff, it's like, not really what you expect, and it can be kind of frustrating," try saying, "I felt disappointed when you came home late without calling because I had prepared dinner for us." See the difference? The second version is clear, specific, and easier to understand. Now, let's talk about something that can completely transform your relationships: empathy in communication. Empathy means trying to understand and share the feelings of another person. It's like putting yourself in their shoes and seeing the world from their perspective. When you communicate with empathy, people feel heard and understood, and they're much more likely to listen to what you have to say. But empathy isn't just about being nice. It's a powerful communication tool. When you show someone that you understand their feelings, they become more open to your ideas. It's like magic. Instead of fighting against each other, you start working together to solve problems. Here's how you can show empathy in your conversations. First, pay attention to the person's emotions, not just their words. Are they frustrated, excited, worried? Second, acknowledge those emotions. You can say things like, "I can see that this is really important to you," or "It sounds like you're feeling overwhelmed." Third, validate their feelings. You don't have to agree with their opinion, but you can understand why they feel the way they do. I learned this lesson the hard way. I used to get into arguments with my mom all the time. We would go back and forth, each trying to prove we were right. One day, instead of arguing, I said, "Mom, I can see that you're worried about me, and I understand why. You care about me and want me to be safe." Everything changed at that moment. She relaxed, and we had a real conversation instead of a fight. Body language is another crucial part of communication that many people overlook. Did you know that more than half of communication is nonverbal? That means your posture, your facial expressions, your hand movements, and even how you're standing can say more than your words. Your body language can either support your message or completely contradict it. Let me tell you what good body language looks like. Stand or sit up straight but not stiff. This shows confidence and respect. Make eye contact but don't stare. Look at the person for a few seconds, then look away briefly, then back again. Keep your arms uncrossed and your hands visible. This shows that you're open and honest. Match your facial expressions to your words. If you're talking about something serious, look serious. If you're sharing good news, smile. I once watched a woman give a presentation about an exciting new project, but she stood with her arms crossed, looking down at her notes the whole time. Even though her words were enthusiastic, her body language said she was closed off and uncertain. The audience didn't feel excited about the project because her body language contradicted her message. Here's something interesting about body language. It works both ways. Not only does your body language affect how others perceive you, but it can also affect how you feel about yourself. If you stand tall with your shoulders back and smile, you'll actually start to feel more confident. It's like your body is teaching your mind how to feel. Now let's talk about asking questions, which is one of the most underrated communication skills. Good questions can turn a boring conversation into an interesting one, help you understand someone better, and show that you care about what they have to say. But there's an art to asking good questions. There are two types of questions: closed questions and open questions. Closed questions can be answered with yes, no, or a short fact. For example, did you have a good weekend? Open questions require more detailed answers and encourage conversation. For example, what was the best part of your weekend? See how the second question invites the person to share more and tell a story? Here's a powerful technique: ask follow-up questions. When someone tells you something, don't just move on to the next topic. Dig a little deeper. If someone says they went to a concert, you could ask, "What kind of music was it?" Or, "How did the music make you feel?" These follow-up questions show that you're genuinely interested and help you learn more about the person. I remember meeting someone at a party who asked me, "What do you do for work?" When I answered, most people would just say, "Oh, that's nice," and change the subject. But this person asked, "What do you love most about your job?" And then, "What got you interested in that field?" By the end of the conversation, I felt like I had made a real connection with someone who was genuinely interested in getting to know me. Let's talk about something that can make or break your communication: managing emotions. We all have strong feelings sometimes: anger, sadness, excitement, and frustration. These emotions are normal and healthy, but they can interfere with our ability to communicate clearly. When we're very emotional, we might say things we don't mean, or we might not be able to listen effectively. The key is learning to recognize your emotions and manage them so they don't take over your communication. Here's a simple technique that works wonders. When you feel a strong emotion rising, pause and take 3 deep breaths. This gives your brain a moment to catch up with your feelings. Then, name the emotion to yourself. "I'm feeling angry right now," or "I'm feeling hurt." This simple act of naming the emotion can reduce its power over you. If you're too emotional to have a productive conversation, it's okay to take a break. You can say something like, "This is important to me, and I want to discuss it when I can think more clearly. Can we talk about this in an hour?" This isn't avoiding the problem, it's being smart about when to address it. I once had a colleague who would get very angry during meetings. Instead of expressing his concerns clearly, he would raise his voice and interrupt people. His good ideas got lost because people focused on his anger instead of his message. When he learned to manage his emotions better, people started listening to his ideas, and he became much more effective at work. Confidence is another essential ingredient in good communication. But here's something important. Confidence doesn't mean being loud or dominating the conversation. True confidence means being comfortable with yourself and your ideas, speaking clearly, and not being afraid to take up space in a conversation. If you struggle with confidence, here are some strategies that can help. First, prepare what you want to say. If you're going to an important meeting or having a difficult conversation, think about your main points ahead of time. Second, practice speaking up in low-stakes situations. If you're in a small group and someone asks what restaurant to go to, share your opinion. These small moments of speaking up build your confidence for bigger moments. Third, remember that your opinions and ideas have value. You have unique experiences and perspectives that no one else has. The world needs to hear what you have to say. When you remember this, it becomes easier to speak up with confidence. I used to be terrified of speaking in meetings at work. I would have great ideas, but I would just sit there quietly while other people talked. One day, my boss asked me directly what I thought about a project. I shared my idea, and it ended up being exactly what the team needed. That moment taught me that my thoughts were valuable, and it gave me the confidence to speak up more often. Let's talk about dealing with difficult conversations and conflicts. We all have to face these sometimes, whether it's disagreeing with a friend, addressing a problem with a coworker, or having a tough talk with a family member. Many people avoid these conversations because they're uncomfortable, but avoiding them usually makes problems worse. The key to handling difficult conversations is to focus on the issue, not the person. Instead of saying, "You always interrupt me," try saying, "I'd like to finish my thought before we move on." Instead of saying, "You're being unreasonable," try saying, "I see this situation differently. Can we explore both perspectives?" Also, choose the right time and place for difficult conversations. Don't try to resolve a conflict when you're rushing out the door or in front of other people. Find a quiet, private space where you can both focus on the conversation. Here's something that might surprise you. You can disagree with someone and still maintain a good relationship. In fact, healthy relationships require some disagreement. The goal isn't to avoid all conflict, it's to handle conflict in a respectful, productive way. When you disagree with someone, you can say things like, "I have a different perspective on this," or "I see your point, and here's another way to look at it." One of my friends and I have very different political views, but we've maintained our friendship for years because we've learned to disagree respectfully. When we discuss politics, we focus on understanding each other's perspectives rather than trying to change each other's minds. We often say things like, "Help me understand why you see it that way," or "That's an interesting point I hadn't considered." Now, let's address something specific to many of you watching this. If English is not your first language, you might feel extra nervous about communicating. I want to tell you something important. Having an accent or making occasional grammar mistakes does not make you a bad communicator. Some of the most effective communicators I know are people who learned English as a second, third, or fourth language. Your unique perspective as someone who speaks multiple languages is actually a superpower in communication. You understand different cultures, you're used to adapting your communication style, and you have experience overcoming language barriers. These are all valuable communication skills. If you're worried about your English, focus on clarity rather than perfection. Speak slowly and clearly. Use simple words when possible. Don't be afraid to ask someone to repeat something if you didn't understand. Most people are patient and helpful when they see you're making an effort to communicate. Also, remember that communication is about connection, not perfection. I've had some of the most meaningful conversations with people who spoke limited English, but communicated with such warmth and sincerity that language barriers seem to disappear. Let me share some practical tips for improving your communication skills every day. First, practice active listening with everyone you talk to: the cashier at the store, your family members, your coworkers. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. Second, try to have one meaningful conversation each day. Instead of just talking about the weather, ask someone about their goals, their challenges, or what they're excited about. Third, pay attention to your body language throughout the day. Notice how you're standing, whether you're making eye contact, what your facial expressions are saying. Fourth, practice expressing your emotions clearly. Instead of saying, "I'm fine," when you're actually frustrated, try saying, "I'm feeling a bit stressed about this deadline." Fifth, ask more open-ended questions. Instead of asking, "How was your day?" try asking, "What was the most interesting part of your day?" Or, "What are you looking forward to tomorrow?" These questions lead to much more engaging conversations. Here's a challenge I want to give you. For the next week, focus on one communication skill each day. Monday, practice active listening. Tuesday, work on speaking clearly. Wednesday, pay attention to your body language. Thursday, practice asking open-ended questions. Friday, work on expressing your emotions clearly. Saturday, practice empathy. Sunday, focus on confidence. By the end of the week, you'll notice a real difference in your conversations. Let's talk about communication in the digital age. So much of our communication now happens through text messages, emails, and social media. These platforms have their own communication challenges. Without facial expressions and tone of voice, it's easy for messages to be misunderstood. When you're writing a text or email, read it from the other person's perspective before you send it. Could your message be interpreted in a negative way? If so, consider calling or talking in person instead. Use emojis and exclamation points to add warmth to your messages, but don't overdo it. For important conversations, choose the right medium. If it's a complex topic or an emotional subject, a phone call or in-person conversation is usually better than texting. If you're sharing exciting news, a phone call lets the other person hear your enthusiasm in your voice. I learned this lesson when I sent what I thought was a funny, sarcastic text to a friend, but she interpreted it as me being mean. We had to have a phone conversation to clear up the misunderstanding. Now, when I'm tempted to send a sarcastic or joking text, I think about whether the person will understand my tone. Building rapport is another important communication skill. Rapport is that feeling of connection and understanding you have with someone. When you have a good rapport with someone, conversations flow easily and you feel comfortable with each other. The good news is that rapport can be built quickly with the right techniques. One way to build rapport is through mirroring. This doesn't mean copying everything the other person does, but subtly matching their communication style. If they speak slowly and softly, don't talk rapidly and loudly. If they're serious, don't be overly jokey. If they're enthusiastic, match their energy level. Another way to build rapport is by finding common ground. Look for shared experiences, interests, or values. Maybe you both love dogs, grew up in small towns, or are learning new languages. These connections create an instant bond. Also, remember people's names and use them in conversation. There's something magical about hearing your own name. It makes you feel recognized and important. If you're bad at remembering names, try repeating the person's name back to them when you first meet. "Nice to meet you, Sarah." This helps cement the name in your memory. Storytelling is a powerful communication tool that can make your conversations more engaging and memorable. Humans are naturally drawn to stories. We've been telling stories around campfires for thousands of years. When you share a personal story, people connect with you on a deeper level. But effective storytelling isn't just about entertainment. You can use stories to make a point, teach a lesson, or help someone understand your perspective. The key is to make your stories relevant to the conversation and to keep them reasonably short. A good story has three parts: a beginning that sets the scene, a middle with some kind of challenge or interesting event, and an end that resolves the situation or shares what you learned. For example, instead of just saying, "I learned that preparation is important," you could tell the story about the time you gave a presentation without preparing and how it taught you to always be ready. I remember when I was trying to encourage a friend who was nervous about starting a new job. Instead of just saying, "You'll be fine," I told her the story of my first day at my current job, how nervous I was, what went wrong, and how it all worked out in the end. The story was much more comforting and encouraging than generic advice would have been. Let's talk about cultural sensitivity in communication. In our connected world, we often communicate with people from different cultural backgrounds. What's considered polite or appropriate in one culture might be different in another. Being aware of these differences can help you communicate more effectively with people from diverse backgrounds. For example, in some cultures, direct eye contact shows respect and attention. In others, it can be seen as aggressive or disrespectful. In some cultures, small talk before getting down to business is important for building relationships. In others, people prefer to get straight to the point. The key is to be observant and flexible. Pay attention to the other person's communication style and adapt accordingly. When in doubt, ask questions. You can say something like, "I want to make sure I'm being respectful. Is there anything I should know about your cultural preferences for this conversation?" Also, avoid making assumptions based on someone's appearance or accent. Just because someone looks different from you or speaks with an accent doesn't mean they have different cultural preferences. Treat everyone as an individual and let them show you how they prefer to communicate. Giving and receiving feedback is another crucial communication skill. Whether you're at work, in school, or in personal relationships, you'll need to give feedback to others and receive feedback about your own performance. Many people struggle with this because they're afraid of hurting feelings or being hurt. When giving feedback, focus on specific behaviors rather than general personality traits. Instead of saying you're disorganized, say, "I noticed that the report didn't include the sales figures we discussed." Also, balance constructive criticism with positive feedback. Point out what the person is doing well, not just what needs improvement. When receiving feedback, try to listen without getting defensive. I know this is hard, especially if the feedback is unexpected or feels unfair. But remember, feedback is a gift. Even if you don't agree with all of it, there's usually something valuable you can learn. Ask clarifying questions to make sure you understand the feedback. You can say things like, "Can you give me a specific example?" Or, "What would you suggest I do differently next time?" This shows that you're taking the feedback seriously and want to improve. Let's discuss the importance of being authentic in your communication. Authenticity means being genuine and true to yourself. It means not pretending to be someone you're not, or saying things you don't believe just to impress others or avoid conflict. Authentic communication builds trust. When people sense that you're being genuine, they're more likely to open up to you and trust what you say. But being authentic doesn't mean saying whatever comes to mind without thinking about the impact. You can be authentic while still being kind, respectful, and appropriate. Sometimes being authentic means admitting when you don't know something. It's okay to say, "I don't have experience with that, but I'd love to learn more." Sometimes it means sharing your real feelings instead of pretending everything is fine. You might say, "I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed with this project. Could we discuss the timeline? I used to think I needed to have all the answers and never show any weakness. But I discovered that when I started being more authentic, admitting my mistakes, and asking for help when I needed it, people actually respected me more, not less. Authenticity is magnetic. Networking and building professional relationships require their own set of communication skills. Many people think networking is about using people or being fake, but good networking is really about building genuine relationships and being helpful to others. When you meet someone new in a professional setting, focus on learning about them rather than immediately talking about yourself. Ask about their work, their challenges, and their goals. Listen for ways you might be able to help them, whether that's making an introduction, sharing a resource, or just offering encouragement. Follow up after meeting someone new. Send a LinkedIn connection request or an email mentioning something specific from your conversation. You might say, "It was great meeting you at the conference yesterday. I found your insights about marketing trends really valuable." Remember, networking isn't just about what others can do for you. Look for ways to help others. Maybe you know someone who would be perfect for a job they mentioned, or you have information that would be useful for their project. When you help others, they're more likely to help you in return. Presenting and public speaking are advanced communication skills that many people fear, but they're incredibly valuable. Whether you're giving a formal presentation or just speaking up in a meeting, these skills can help you share your ideas more effectively. The key to good presenting is preparation and practice. Know your material well enough that you can talk about it naturally, not just read from notes. Practice your presentation out loud, not just in your head. This helps you identify parts that are unclear or transitions that are awkward. Start with a strong opening that grabs attention. You might ask a question, share a surprising fact, or tell a brief story. End with a clear conclusion that summarizes your main points. In the middle, organize your information logically and use examples to illustrate your points. Remember, your audience wants you to succeed. They're not hoping you'll fail. They're there to learn something from you. Focus on your message and your audience, not on your nervousness. I used to be terrified of public speaking. My hands would shake, my voice would tremble, and I would rush through my presentations just to get them over with. But with practice and preparation, I learned to actually enjoy presenting. Now I see it as an opportunity to share ideas and connect with people. Technology has given us amazing tools for communication, but it's important to use them wisely. Video calls can help us connect face-to-face with people around the world, but they also come with their own challenges. Make sure you have good lighting and audio. Look at the camera, not the screen, when you're talking. This creates better eye contact with the other person. Social media can be a great way to stay connected with friends and family and to build professional networks. But remember that social media posts can be misunderstood, and they're permanent. Think before you post. Would you be comfortable if your boss, your grandmother, or your future employer saw this post? Email is still an important communication tool, especially in professional settings. Write clear subject lines that tell the recipient what the email is about. Keep your emails concise but polite. Use bullet points for lists of information, and always proofread before sending. Let's talk about communication in relationships, whether romantic relationships, friendships, or family relationships. Good communication is the foundation of all healthy relationships. It's how we share our thoughts and feelings, resolve conflicts, and build deeper connections. In close relationships, It's especially important to be honest about your feelings and needs. Don't expect the other person to read your mind. If something is bothering you, address it directly but kindly. Use I statements to express your feelings without blaming the other person. For example, I felt hurt when you canceled our plans at the last minute, instead of you always cancel on me. Also, make time for positive communication, not just problem solving. Share good news with each other. Ask about each other's day. Express appreciation and gratitude. These positive interactions build a strong foundation that can support you through difficult times. Remember that communication in relationships is ongoing. You can't just have one good conversation and expect everything to be perfect forever. Good communication requires constant attention and effort, but the rewards are enormous. Self-communication, or how you talk to yourself, is often overlooked but incredibly important. The way you speak to yourself affects your confidence, your mood, and your ability to communicate with others. If you're constantly criticizing yourself or telling yourself you're not good enough, it will show in your external communication. Practice speaking to yourself with the same kindness you would show a good friend. Instead of thinking, I'm so bad at this, try thinking, I'm learning and improving. Instead of I can't do anything right, try I made a mistake and that's okay. What can I learn from this? Positive self-talk isn't about being unrealistic or ignoring problems. It's about being fair and encouraging to yourself. When you treat yourself well internally, it becomes easier to communicate authentically and confidently with others. As we wrap up our journey together today, I want you to remember something important. Communication skills are like muscles, they get stronger with practice. You don't have to be perfect right away. In fact, you never have to be perfect. Even the best communicators are always learning and improving. Start with one or two skills that resonate with you most. Maybe it's active listening, or asking better questions, or managing your emotions during difficult conversations. Focus on these skills for a few weeks until they start to feel natural. Then add another skill to work on. Don't be discouraged if you make mistakes or have conversations that don't go well. Every expert was once a beginner. Every smooth conversation you admire from someone else represents years of practice and many awkward moments along the way. I believe in you. I believe that you have important things to say and meaningful connections to make. Your unique perspective, your experiences, your thoughts and feelings, they all matter. The world needs to hear from you, and with these communication skills, you'll be able to share yourself more effectively than ever before. Communication is one of the most powerful tools you have for creating the life you want. It can help you build stronger relationships, advance in your career, resolve conflicts, and feel more confident in any situation. These skills will serve you for the rest of your life, getting better and more natural with time and practice. Remember, every conversation is an opportunity to practice. Every interaction is a chance to connect with another human being. Some conversations will be easy, others will be challenging, but all of them are opportunities to grow and learn. So go out there and start communicating with intention. Listen deeply to the people in your life. Speak clearly and authentically. Ask questions that show you care. Handle conflicts with grace and empathy. Build the relationships you want through the power of good communication. You've got this. I'm cheering you on every step of the way. Your communication journey starts now, and I can't wait to see how it transforms your life. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Here's to better conversations, stronger connections, and a more confident you.